Living life to the fullest isn't about cramming your days with endless tasks or striving for unattainable perfection. It's about showing up for your own life every messy, beautiful, imperfect moment of it. To live fully, we must first embrace vulnerability. There's a deep courage in allowing yourself to be seen as you truly are. It's scary to drop the armor, but that's where real joy begins. Life isn't meant to be perfect, it's meant to be real. Living fully begins with a willingness to embrace vulnerability. It's the foundation of an authentic and meaningful life. Vulnerability often gets a bad reputation. Many of us equate it with weakness or exposure, as though letting others see our true selves might somehow diminish our worth. But vulnerability is not a weakness, it's the most accurate measure of courage. Think about it, every moment that has ever made your heart race with possibility required vulnerability. Falling in love, starting a new job, creating something that matters, or even simply speaking up in a room full of people, all of it demands that you show up, knowing there's no guarantee of success, approval, or safety. And yet, it's in those uncertain spaces that the magic happens. Vulnerability is about allowing yourself to be seen, even when it's uncomfortable. It's being honest about your fears, your dreams, and your imperfections. It's saying, this is who I am, without needing to edit yourself for the comfort of others. It's admitting, I don't have all the answers, or I made a mistake, without letting shame take over. But let's be clear, vulnerability doesn't mean sharing every intimate detail of your life with everyone. It's about intentionality. You don't open your heart to just anyone, you choose the spaces and people where trust has been cultivated. Vulnerability thrives in environments of trust and empathy. When you embrace vulnerability, you invite deeper connections. You give others permission to do the same. Suddenly, conversations move beyond surface-level pleasantries to meaningful exchanges that build relationships. People feel safe with you, not because you're perfect, but because you're real. Vulnerability also allows you to experience true joy. When we armor ourselves against pain, we inadvertently block out joy too. You can't selectively numb emotions. By daring to feel deeply even when it's uncomfortable, you create space for the full range of human experience. Yes, vulnerability is risky. It's stepping into the unknown without a guarantee. It's facing the possibility of rejection or failure. But consider the alternative: living a life so guarded that you never truly connect, never fully love, and never completely show up for your own dreams. That isn't safety, that's isolation. So what does it take to embrace vulnerability? It takes practice. It takes choosing courage over comfort every single day. It takes resisting the urge to hide behind perfection or distraction. And it takes self-compassion, because being vulnerable means you'll sometimes stumble. But here's the truth: living a life of courage, connection, and joy is worth every moment of discomfort. Vulnerability isn't the end of the story, it's the beginning. It's the key to living fully, to showing up as the truest version of yourself, and to creating a life that feels profoundly rich and deeply human. Cultivating gratitude is not just a fleeting expression of thanks, it's a way of life that changes how we see the world and ourselves. Gratitude isn't about ignoring challenges or pretending everything is perfect. Instead, it's about finding meaning and beauty in the midst of life's imperfections and complexities. It's a deliberate choice to shift your focus from what's missing to what's present, from what's wrong to what's right. Gratitude begins with awareness and intentional practice of noticing the small moments that we often overlook. It's the warmth of sunlight streaming through a window, the sound of laughter shared with a friend, or even the quiet peace of a still morning. These moments, while seemingly ordinary, hold extraordinary power to ground us in the present and remind us of life's inherent richness. When we cultivate gratitude, we're rewiring our minds to see abundance instead of lack. So much of life is spent chasing what we think will make us happy: the next job, the next achievement, the next big thing. But gratitude teaches us that joy isn't waiting out there somewhere, it's already here, hidden in the fabric of our everyday lives. We just have to learn how to notice it. Gratitude doesn't always come easily. In tough times, it can feel almost impossible to find something to be grateful for. But those are the moments when gratitude becomes a lifeline. It doesn't erase pain or hardship, but it anchors us to what remains steady and good. Even in the darkest seasons, there is always something, a kind word, a small gesture, or the simple fact that we're still breathing to remind us that life, though hard, is still a gift. Practicing gratitude also changes how we relate to others. When we regularly acknowledge the good in our lives, we naturally begin to see the good in other people. It shifts us from a mindset of entitlement to one of appreciation. We stop taking things for granted, the love of a partner, the support of a friend, the efforts of a colleague, and start expressing our thanks openly. These moments of recognition strengthen relationships and create a ripple effect of kindness and connection. Gratitude also teaches humility. It reminds us that we are not self-made. That much of what we enjoy and rely on comes from the generosity, work, and sacrifice of others. This awareness fosters a spirit of giving, a desire to contribute to the lives of others as we've been enriched by them. Living with gratitude isn't about ignoring pain or suppressing negative emotions. It's about holding space for all of it, the joy and the sorrow, the triumphs and the struggles, and choosing to see the gifts within it all. Gratitude doesn't eliminate life's challenges, but it equips us to face them with resilience, hope, and a sense of wonder. When you cultivate gratitude, you begin to see life differently. The ordinary becomes extraordinary. The mundane becomes meaningful, and even in the chaos, there's a quiet undercurrent of peace. Gratitude doesn't change the world, but it changes how you experience it, and in the end, that makes all the difference. Setting boundaries is one of the most profound acts of self-respect and self-care. It is not about building walls to shut people out. It's about creating clear lines that protect your time, energy, and values while still allowing connection and growth. Boundaries are not acts of selfishness. They are acts of clarity, signaling where you end and another begins. They enable you to show up authentically in your relationships and commitments rather than being overwhelmed or resentful. At its core, setting boundaries starts with knowing yourself, what you need, what you value, and what you're willing to tolerate. Without this self-awareness, it's easy to fall into patterns of overcommitting, people-pleasing, or saying yes when you really mean no. Boundaries require you to get honest about your limits and honor them without apology. It's not always easy, especially if you're used to putting others' needs ahead of your own, but it's essential for a healthy, fulfilling life. Boundaries are an expression of your worth. When you set them, you're declaring to yourself and others that your time, energy, and emotional well-being are valuable. You're saying, I deserve to be treated with respect, and I won't compromise my needs to meet someone else's expectations. This can feel uncomfortable, particularly if you've been conditioned to believe that your value comes from how much you give or how agreeable you are. But the truth is, boundaries are not barriers to love. They're the framework that allows love, respect, and trust to flourish. One of the biggest misconceptions about boundaries is that they push people away. In reality, healthy boundaries foster stronger connections. When you clearly communicate your limits, you eliminate confusion and resentment. You give others a roadmap for how to engage with you in ways that are respectful and mutually beneficial. People who genuinely care for you will respect your boundaries, even if they're not always convenient for them. Setting boundaries also requires courage. It means being willing to have uncomfortable conversations, to disappoint others, and to face pushback. Not everyone will appreciate your boundaries, especially if they've benefited from your lack of them in the past. But standing firm in your boundaries is a powerful act of self-advocacy. It's a way of saying, I will no longer sacrifice my well-being to make others comfortable. Boundaries are also dynamic. As you grow and change, so will your needs. The boundaries you set today may look different in a year, and that's okay. The key is to remain attuned to what you need in each season of your life and to adjust accordingly. Learning to set boundaries is not just about saying no, it's about deciding what you want to say yes to. When you create space by declining commitments or behaviors that drain you, you open up room for what truly matters, whether it's nurturing relationships, pursuing your passions, or simply finding rest. Ultimately, setting boundaries is an act of love, not just for yourself, but for those around you. When you take responsibility for your limits, you free others from the impossible task of trying to guess them. You create relationships rooted in mutual respect, where both parties are free to thrive. Boundaries are not the end of connection, they're the beginning of connection that is honest, sustainable, and deeply fulfilling. Pursuing meaning over achievement is about shifting the focus from external success to internal fulfillment. Achievements are tangible titles, awards, promotions, accolades. They're measurable and often celebrated by society. But meaning is deeper, quieter, and less about the recognition of others and more about the resonance within your soul. While achievements can bring fleeting satisfaction, meaning gives you a sense of purpose that endures beyond the momentary applause. To pursue meaning, you must first understand that your worth is not tied to your accomplishments. It's tempting to equate success with value, especially in a world that glorifies hustle and productivity. But when you make your identity dependent on what you achieve, you're left chasing a moving target. No matter how much you accomplish, it will never feel like enough because you're trying to fill an internal void with external validation. Meaning, on the other hand, is about alignment. It's about living in harmony with your values, passions, and the deeper callings of your heart. It's about asking what truly matters to me and letting the answer guide your choices. Meaning invites you to slow down and prioritize what gives your life depth and richness, whether it's the relationships you nurture, the impact you make, or the way you grow as a person. When you pursue meaning, your actions stem from a place of intention rather than obligation or expectation. It's not about checking off boxes or chasing the next milestone. It's about being present and engaged in the work and relationships that matter most to you. For some, this might mean dedicating themselves to a cause they're passionate about. For others, it could be raising a family, creating art, mentoring others, or simply living a life that reflects their values. Pursuing meaning also requires redefining what success looks like. Success isn't just about climbing the ladder or accumulating wealth, it's about whether your life reflects the things that make your heart come alive. It's asking, am I becoming the person I want to be? And am I living in a way that feels true to me? This redefinition can be challenging, especially when society often measures success in terms of numbers and accolades. But the courage to define success on your own terms is what allows you to live a life of purpose. One of the most beautiful aspects of pursuing meaning is that it doesn't require perfection. Achievements often demand precision and flawlessness, but meaning welcomes the messy, imperfect nature of life. It recognizes that growth often comes from failures, that beauty can be found in struggle, and that what makes life meaningful isn't always neat or tidy. Pursuing meaning also has a profound impact on your relationships. When you prioritize connection over competition, you create spaces where trust and vulnerability can flourish. You're no longer focused on proving yourself to others, but on truly seeing and supporting them. This shift not only deepens your relationships, but also reminds you that life's greatest treasures are often found in the love and connection you share with others. Finally, pursuing meaning is about legacy, not the legacy of wealth or accolades, but the legacy of how you make others feel, the values you live by, and the example you set. It's about the quiet, enduring impact you have on the world around you, not because of what you achieve, but because of who you are. At its heart, pursuing meaning over achievement is about living a life that feels full, rather than simply looking full. It's about choosing depth over breadth, purpose over pressure, and fulfillment over fleeting success. When you prioritize meaning, you create a life that isn't just impressive, it's truly your own. Building brave relationships is about creating connections rooted in trust, vulnerability, and authenticity. It's about choosing to engage with others in ways that allow both you and them to show up fully without fear of judgment or rejection. These relationships don't just happen, they are intentionally cultivated through courage, empathy, and a willingness to lean into discomfort. Brave relationships begin with trust, which is built over time through consistent actions and words. Trust is not a single grand gesture, but a series of small moments, keeping a promise, listening without interrupting, showing up when it matters most. It's about creating a foundation where both people feel safe enough to let down their guard and share their true selves. Without trust, relationships remain surface level, lacking the depth that allows for genuine connection. Vulnerability is the cornerstone of brave relationships. To truly connect with someone, you have to let them see you as you are, not as you think they want you to be. This means sharing your fears, hopes, and imperfections, even when it feels risky. Vulnerability is not about oversharing or expecting others to fix you. It's about opening a door to mutual understanding. When you're vulnerable, you invite others to do the same, creating a space where both of you can be seen and accepted. Empathy plays a vital role in building brave relationships. Empathy is not about agreeing with someone or trying to solve their problems. It's about sitting with them in their experience and saying, I see you, I hear you, I'm here with you. It's about putting yourself in their shoes, even when it's uncomfortable, and holding space for their emotions without judgment. Empathy deepens connection because it reminds us that we're not alone in our struggles. Conflict is inevitable in any relationship, but in brave relationships, conflict becomes an opportunity for growth rather than a threat to connection. It takes courage to address disagreements honestly and respectfully. It requires listening to understand, not to defend. When you approach conflict with curiosity and a willingness to learn, you strengthen the relationship rather than tearing it apart. Boundaries are another essential aspect of brave relationships. They're not about shutting people out, but about creating clarity and mutual respect. Boundaries allow you to engage in relationships without losing yourself. They help you communicate your needs and expectations while honoring the needs and expectations of others. In brave relationships, boundaries are seen not as barriers, but as bridges to deeper understanding. Building brave relationships also means embracing imperfection. No one gets it right all the time. There will be misunderstandings, missteps, and moments when you disappoint each other. What matters is how you repair those moments, how you apologize, forgive, and commit to doing better. Brave relationships don't demand perfection. They thrive on resilience and grace. Lastly, brave relationships require reciprocity. They're not one-sided. Both people must be willing to show up, invest, and grow. This doesn't mean that everything is always perfectly balanced, but there's a mutual understanding that both parties are committed to the relationship's health and growth. Building brave relationships takes time and effort, but the rewards are profound. These connections allow you to be fully yourself while encouraging the same in others. They provide a safe haven in a world that often feels isolating, reminding you that you're not alone. When you build brave relationships, you're not just creating bonds with others, you're building a life enriched by trust, love, and deep human connection. Leaning into discomfort is the gateway to growth, resilience, and meaningful change. It's the decision to face uncertainty, challenge, and vulnerability head-on rather than avoiding or numbing it. While our natural instinct may be to retreat from discomfort, doing so often keeps us stuck in familiar patterns, robbing us of opportunities to learn, grow, and connect in authentic ways. Choosing to lean into discomfort is an act of courage that opens doors to deeper understanding and transformation. Discomfort shows up in many forms. It could be the awkwardness of having a tough conversation, the fear of trying something new, or the vulnerability of admitting you don't have all the answers. It's tempting to avoid these moments by staying silent, sticking to routines, or distracting ourselves with busyness. But avoidance only delays the inevitable and often magnifies the fear. By leaning in, we take control of our narrative and face the challenge with intention and strength. Growth and discomfort are inseparable. When you step outside your comfort zone, you're stepping into a space where real learning happens. This isn't easy. It can feel like walking into the unknown without a safety net. But every skill you've ever mastered, every strength you've developed, and every milestone you've achieved began with a moment of discomfort. It's in these moments that you discover your capacity for resilience and your ability to adapt. Leaning into discomfort also strengthens relationships. True connection requires vulnerability, and vulnerability is uncomfortable. It means being honest about your feelings, apologizing when you're wrong, and listening to others with an open heart, even when their perspective challenges your own. These moments can feel messy and uncertain, but they're the foundation of trust and empathy. When you lean into relational discomfort, you create space for deeper, more authentic bonds. Discomfort also teaches us to embrace imperfection. We often avoid uncomfortable situations because we're afraid of failing or looking inadequate. But when you lean in, you learn that failure is not the opposite of success, it's part of the process. Every misstep is a stepping stone, and every imperfect attempt brings you closer to growth. Leaning into discomfort isn't about getting it right all the time, it's about showing up and being willing to try. Another profound lesson of discomfort is the strength it builds in resilience. Life is full of challenges. We can't avoid grief, loss, uncertainty, and change. When you practice leaning into discomfort in smaller, everyday moments, you build the emotional muscle needed to face life's bigger storms. You learn that discomfort is not a permanent state, but a passageway, and that you are strong enough to navigate through it. Leaning into discomfort doesn't mean recklessly diving into every hard situation without preparation or support. It's about being intentional and mindful. It's about recognizing when discomfort is signaling an opportunity for growth and choosing to engage with it in a way that aligns with your values. Sometimes this means taking small, manageable steps. Other times it means seeking guidance or leaning on others for support. Ultimately, leaning into discomfort is an act of self-compassion. It's trusting that you are worthy and capable, even when things feel hard or uncertain. It's believing that you don't have to have all the answers to take the next step. And it's reminding yourself that every time you lean into discomfort, you're choosing growth over stagnation, courage over fear, and authenticity over avoidance. Discomfort is not the enemy, it's a teacher. When you lean into it, you unlock the potential to grow in ways you never thought possible. It's not easy, but it's worth it. Because on the other side of discomfort lies a life that is fuller, richer, and more deeply aligned with who you are and who you're becoming. Celebrating imperfection is about embracing the fullness of who we are, flaws and all, rather than striving for an unattainable ideal of perfection. It's recognizing that our imperfections are not shortcomings to be fixed, but essential parts of our humanity. When we celebrate imperfection, we free ourselves from the exhausting pursuit of perfectionism and open the door to self-compassion, authenticity, and meaningful connection. Imperfection is what makes us human. Each of us carries scars, mistakes we've made, challenges we've faced, and weaknesses we wrestle with. But those imperfections are not proof of failure, they're evidence of a life lived. They tell stories of resilience, courage, and growth. By celebrating imperfection, we honor the journey rather than fixating solely on the destination. We acknowledge that life is a series of messy, beautiful moments where we learn and evolve. When we hold ourselves to impossible standards, we create a constant state of inadequacy. Perfectionism whispers that we're never enough, that if we could just do more, be more, or fix ourselves, we'd finally be worthy. But perfectionism is a trap, an illusion that keeps us focused on our flaws and blinds us to our strengths. Celebrating imperfection challenges that narrative. It allows us to say, I am enough as I am, even as I continue to grow. This shift isn't about settling or avoiding growth. Celebrating imperfection doesn't mean giving up on goals or refusing to strive for better. Instead, it means embracing the idea that growth comes from imperfection. Mistakes are not failures, but opportunities to learn. Setbacks are not signs of weakness, but invitations to build resilience. When we stop fearing imperfection, we give ourselves permission to try, to risk, and to step into new possibilities without the weight of needing to get it all right. Imperfection also deepens our connections with others. Perfect people don't exist, but the pressure to appear perfect can isolate us. When we celebrate our imperfections and share them openly, we invite others to do the same. This vulnerability fosters trust, empathy, and a sense of belonging. It reminds us that we're not alone in our struggles, and that our worth isn't tied to an idealized version of ourselves. There's also beauty in imperfection. The things that make us unique, the quirks, the flaws, the cracks in our facade are often the things that make us most relatable and memorable. Imperfection is where creativity thrives, where innovation is born, and where authenticity shines. It's in the gaps and edges that we find the raw, unpolished truth of who we are. And that truth is infinitely more compelling than any airbrushed ideal. Celebrating imperfection is a practice, not a one-time decision. It requires mindfulness and intention to silence the voice of self-criticism and replace it with self-acceptance. It means catching ourselves in moments of comparison and choosing to appreciate our own journey instead of measuring it against someone else's. It's about recognizing the bravery in being imperfect and choosing to love ourselves, not despite our flaws, but because of them. When we celebrate imperfection, we find freedom. Freedom from the weight of unrealistic expectations. Freedom to show up as our true selves. Freedom to live a life that's rich, messy, and real. In celebrating imperfection, we're not settling for less, we're opening ourselves up to more joy, more connection, more meaning. Because the most beautiful, meaningful parts of life are rarely perfect. They're imperfect, and that's what makes them extraordinary. Practicing self-compassion is one of the most transformative acts you can offer yourself. It's a way of responding to your imperfections, mistakes, and struggles with kindness instead of criticism, with understanding instead of judgment. It's about treating yourself as you would a dear friend, someone you care about deeply and want to support, especially in moments of difficulty. Self-compassion begins with recognizing that you are human. To be human is to be imperfect, to make mistakes, and to encounter challenges. There's no escaping this truth, yet so often we hold ourselves to a standard of perfection that no one could meet. When we fail to meet those impossible standards, we tend to respond with harsh self-criticism, as if shaming ourselves will somehow push us to do better. But this approach only deepens feelings of inadequacy and unworthiness. Self-compassion offers a different path, a gentler, more constructive way to navigate life's inevitable struggles. At the heart of self-compassion is mindfulness, the ability to acknowledge your pain without becoming overwhelmed by it. Mindfulness allows you to say, "This is hard," or "I'm struggling," without adding layers of blame or shame. It's about being present with your experience instead of avoiding it or catastrophizing it. By simply noticing and naming what you're feeling, you create space for self-compassion to emerge. Another key element of self-compassion is recognizing your common humanity. Often when we're in pain or facing a challenge, we feel isolated, as if we're the only ones who have ever failed or struggled. But the truth is, struggle is a universal part of the human experience. Everyone faces hardships, everyone makes mistakes. When you remind yourself of this, you shift from a mindset of "why me" to one of "I'm not alone in this." This connection to others brings comfort and perspective, softening the edges of self-criticism. Self-compassion also involves actively offering yourself kindness. This might feel unnatural at first, especially if you're used to being your own harshest critic. But kindness is not indulgence, it's a powerful tool for growth and resilience. It's about speaking to yourself with words that heal rather than harm, like "it's okay to feel this way" or "you're doing the best you can." It's about taking actions that nurture and support you, whether that means giving yourself time to rest, seeking help, or reminding yourself of your worth. Practicing self-compassion doesn't mean avoiding accountability or ignoring areas where you can improve. In fact, it's the opposite. When you approach yourself with compassion, you create an environment where growth feels safe and possible. You're more likely to take risks, try new things, and learn from mistakes when you know that failure won't be met with harsh judgment. Self-compassion gives you the courage to face challenges and the resilience to bounce back when things don't go as planned. Self-compassion is also a powerful antidote to shame. Shame thrives in secrecy and judgment, telling us we're not good enough. But when you respond to yourself with compassion, you disrupt shame's narrative. You remind yourself that you are worthy, not because of what you achieve or how perfectly you perform, but simply because you exist. Self-compassion helps you reclaim your inherent value and silence the voice of shame. This practice is not a one-time fix, it's a lifelong commitment. There will be moments when self-criticism creeps back in, And that's okay. Self-compassion doesn't require perfection. It simply invites you to try again, to keep choosing kindness over judgment, and to keep showing up for yourself. When you practice self-compassion, you transform your relationship with yourself. You become your own ally rather than your own worst enemy. You create a foundation of love and care that sustains you through life's ups and downs. And in doing so, you not only nurture your own well-being, but also deepen your capacity to offer compassion to others. Because when you truly embrace yourself with kindness, it radiates outward, enriching every aspect of your life. Living life to the fullest means embracing every part of our humanity with courage, authenticity, and purpose. It's about leaning into vulnerability, allowing ourselves to be seen and fully engaged in the present moment. By cultivating gratitude, we learn to appreciate the beauty in both the extraordinary and the everyday. Setting boundaries allows us to protect our energy and focus on what truly matters, while pursuing meaning over achievement ensures our lives are aligned with values, not just accomplishments. Building brave relationships fosters deep, authentic connections that nourish our souls. Leaning into discomfort teaches us that growth and resilience often arise from life's most challenging moments. Celebrating imperfection frees us from the tyranny of perfectionism, reminding us that our flaws are part of what make us beautifully human. And by practicing self-compassion, we create a foundation of kindness and understanding that allows us to face life's trials with strength and grace. Together, these principles form a path to a life that is not just lived, but truly embraced messy, meaningful, and unapologetically real.